welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark, and in this video we're looking at the modes made easy for blues players. So the way this video is going to work, it's broken down into three sections. First of all, I'm going to explain the theory of the modes and how that might be actually way easier than you might think. Then we're going to look at how the modes apply to the blues. And then I'm going to show you 4 fantastic blues licks that use the modes, and you can learn them really quick and easy and use them in your own playing today. So in order to get the most out of this, first of all, I think it's really important that we understand the major scale and how chords are formed. Now, if we don't know that already, well, I have another video called Essential Blues Music Theory. It takes about 12 minutes to get through, and it explains the major scale, how chords are formed, where the 12-bar blues comes from, and all that kind of thing. So if you don't understand the major scale and where chords come from, I'd suggest having a look at that before diving into the modes, because the modes would be a little bit too advanced. Okay, so just like that lesson, there's a free PDF to accompany this modes lesson, and details are in the description below. So everything that we do at music theory is based on the major scale. That's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do scale. We never play it, as I said in the Essential Music Theory for Blues lesson, we never actually play it as blues guitar players, but we do need to understand it. Now, with music theory, I like to teach in the scale, in the key of C major, in the key of C major, because C major's got no sharps and no flats. So if we looked at a keyboard, it's just all the white keys, none of the black keys. It makes it very nice and easy, because then we just have the scale of C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, no sharps, no flats. And actually the major scale itself is a mode. It's the Ionian Mode. So already we know one of the modes, the Ionian Mode. But what happens if we take the notes of the C major scale and we build a new scale from D to D? So we play D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Still no sharps or flats. We're playing just the notes of the C major scale, but we're going to play it from D to D. Well, what would that scale sound like? If we took those notes, the scale would be some kind of minor scale. And if we compare this to the D natural minor scale, we'll see that it's almost the same, except that now there's one note difference. That's the 6th note is a B natural, whereas in the minor scale, it'd be a B flat. And we call this the Dorian Mode. It's a minor scale with a major 6th, so it gives it a kind of slightly sweeter sound, somewhere between major and minor. If we were to play a 1-4-5 chord progression over this mode, we'd be playing the chords of D minor, G7 and A minor. So how did we find this D Dorian mode? Well, we simply took the C major scale and we just started playing all the notes of C major, but starting on the 2nd position. So starting at 2nd note, which is D, and playing D to D. So we play a C major scale over a root of D and we get D Dorian. It's that easy. So now let's do the same thing, but going from the E to the E. Again, just playing the notes of the C major scale. So those notes would form some kind of E minor scale. And if we compare this to the E natural minor scale, we can see that it's almost the same, except now that the 2nd note is an F, whereas in the E minor scale, it'd be an F sharp. And we call this the E Phrygian mode. It's a minor scale with a flattened 2nd, and that gives it a kind of dark, exotic sound. If we were to play a 1-4-5 chord progression for this mode, we'd be playing the chords of E minor, A minor and B minor 7 flat 5. So now let's do the same thing, but going from F to F, again just using the notes of the C major scale. So those notes would form some kind of F major scale. And if we were to compare that to the actual F major scale, we can see that again, it's almost the same, except now it's got a sharpened 4th. That means that it's got a B natural, whereas the F major scale, it would be a B flat. And we call this F Lydian. It's a major scale, but it's got a slightly more dreamy sound. If we were to play our 1-4-5 chord progression over this, we'd be playing an F, a B minor 7 flat 5 and a chord of C. So let's do the same thing now, but going from G to G, again, just using the notes of the C major scale. The notes, again, would make some kind of G major scale. And if we were to compare that to an actual G major scale, we can see that, again, it's almost the same, except now the 7th note is an F natural, whereas in a G major scale, it would be an F sharp. So we say that this is a major scale, but it's got a flattened 7th. And we call this the G Mixolydian scale. And if we were to play a 1-4-5 chord progression for the G Mixolydian mode, we'd be playing the chords of G7, C and D minor. So let's do the same thing now again, but going from A to A. Again, just using the notes of C major, no sharps, no flats. And what we get is an A minor scale. In fact, it's the A natural minor scale. So we call this the Aeolian mode. So the Aeolian mode is the natural minor scale. And if we were to play a 1-4-5 chord progression over this, it would be an A minor, a D minor and an E minor would be the chords that we play over. So let's do the same thing now to finish off. Let's go from B to B. So this would make some kind of B minor scale. And it would just have 2 notes that differ from the natural minor scale. The 2nd is flattened and so is the 5th. And we call this the B Locrian mode. And the Locrian mode has a kind of dark, scary kind of sound. And if we were to play a 1-4-5 chord progression for this mode, we'd be playing a B minor 7 flat 5, an E minor and an F. So that's all the modes. And to find the modes, all we've done is we've taken our major scale and we've built a new scale starting at each note. But again, just playing the notes with no sharps or flats. So from C to C, we get the Ionian mode. Starting at D, we get the D Dorian mode. Starting at E, we get the E Phrygian mode, and the F Lydian mode, and the G Mixolydian mode, and the A Aeolian mode. And finally, the B Locrian mode. And that's the theory of where these modes come from. So if we want to play E Phrygian, we just use all the notes from C major scale and we play them over an E minor chord. And it's that easy. If we use the notes of the C major scale over a D minor chord, we'd be playing in D Dorian. If we played the notes of the C major scale over a G7 chord, we'd be playing in Mixolydian. So we've learnt all these different modes, but we've actually just been repurposing the C major scale, just using it in a different context. If we played the C major scale over an F chord, we'd be playing in F Lydian. So how does this actually apply to the blues? As we discussed in the Essential Music Theory video, blues players generally just don't use the major scale. And we know, as we said before, the Ionian mode is the major scale. So we can ignore the Ionian mode. The Dorian scale is great for blues players, so we're going to keep that one. We don't play the Phrygian mode, so we can get rid of that one. We don't play the Lydian mode, so we can get rid of that one. Now we'll use the Mixolydian scale, so we'll keep that one. And when I say scale, I use the word scale and mode interchangeably. They pretty much mean the same thing. Remember that the Aeolian mode is the natural minor scale, and the only time we really use the natural minor scale is when we're playing over a minor 12-bar blues with a very particular chord progression. And I'm going to assume that we know the natural minor scale anyway, so we're going to ignore that one just for now. And the Locrian mode is a mode that we'd never really use in blues as well, so we can get rid of that one. So the only modes that we really need to focus on in blues are the Dorian and the Mixolydian modes. Dorian is a sweetened kind of minor scale built off the 2nd degree of the major scale. And the Mixolydian mode is built off the 5th degree of the major scale, and that's perfectly suited to playing over a dominant 7th chord. So let's apply this now to our 12-bar blues. Let's say we're in the key of G. Well, we could play a G Dorian over the entire 12-bar progression. Or we could use G Mixolydian mode. However, we have to be a bit careful with Mixolydian. We can use the G Mixolydian mode over the G7 chords in a 12-bar blues, but we couldn't use it over the C7 and D7 chords. And I'll discuss that in a future lesson, but if you've already seen my lessons on mixing major and minor, it's basically the same principle. That means that we can't use G major pentatonic over a C7 and D7 chord. For the same reason, we can't use G Mixolydian. Okay, so that's a lot of theory, but really the actual blues players use modes. Well, modern blues players like Robin Ford certainly do. We know this because there's plenty of instruction material and videos of Robin Ford talking about his music, and he certainly talks in modes. And the same is true for other blues players, such as Matt Schofield. Okay, so that might be true for modern players, but if we go back a generation, what about players like Eric Clapton? So I've got no idea whether Clapton formally learned the modes, but when we recently looked at analysing his version of a Tour Down, we saw that Clapton strongly lent into the sound of the minor pentatonic, but added the second and the major sixth. And that gives us the Dorian mode. In fact, one of the comments that somebody left on my video after I did that analysis was pointing out that this is the Dorian mode. So whether or not Clapton formally learned this as the Dorian mode or not, he certainly knows how to use it and how to use it in blues. If we look closely, we can find examples of him using Mixolydian as well in other songs. Going back a generation further, there's a fantastic set of 3 video lessons that B.B. King made, and in there he talks about his approach to scales and note choice. Now, it's clear from those lessons that he doesn't ever refer to modes. But what he does talk about is the sounds that he gets by mixing certain combinations of notes together. And he talks about how he likes to mix the sweetness of the major sixth in with the darkness of the minor third. And that major sixth with the minor third, that's the essence of Dorian. So whether these great blues players were formally taught these sounds as modes or not, it's clear that they can recognize these sounds and apply them to their own blues when they want to. Okay, so that's a whole load of theory, and if you'd like a free PDF of the details of this so you can digest at your own pace, then the details of how to get that are in the description below. So let's now learn 2 Dorian licks and 2 Mixolydian licks. I'm going to play all 4 licks over a static G7 chord shuffle, and then I'm going to pull them apart and show them one by one with tab on screen. So let's go over and listen to the licks. So lick 1, nice and slow, will go like this. So if we think of our G minor chord, and we think of the G minor pentatonic scale, we're essentially adding the major sixth, which is this note here, 2nd fret D string, and we're also adding the major sixth an octave above, which is 5th fret of the B string, and our root, just for reference, is 5th fret of the D string, and our minor third is 3rd fret G string. So the essence of Dorian is minor third and major sixth together in the same scale. That's what gives you the Dorian sound, so that's why we're picking those out. So once more, nice and slow. Now you'll notice sometimes I use my little finger, sometimes I'm using my ring finger. It doesn't really matter, whatever's most comfortable for you. Watch out for those those double stops, 2 notes, 2 strings together. Okay, so that was lick 1, lick 2, also Dorian. This time I'm going to jump right up to the 12th fret. Nice and slow, it will go like this. Okay, so our major sixth is here. Our minor third is this one here. And this one here. They're the same note, it's just I kind of like to finger it this particular way. And notice I'm giving that minor third a little bit of a dirty push. And then we're jumping up to the sixth, which is actually this note here. But we're going to get there by bending up from here. And then off to this one, minor third again to root. Okay, so there you go, there's Dorian Mode. Okay, lick 3 now is Mixolydian, and we can think of it from this G here. G triad, if we turn that into a G Mixolydian, we get this one. So it's basically built out of that shape. And it goes nice and slow like this. So our root is here. B string, where are we? 8th fret with our ring finger. And our flat 7 is index finger, 6th fret on the B string. So we're really emphasizing that note, we're ending the lick on that note. Our major third is this one here. So what's that? 7th fret of the top E string. And like we'll often hit a major third, we're going to hammer onto it from the fret below, from the minor third to the major third. So you'll notice I do that little move. So once again, lick 3 nice and slow. And it's got that real Mixolydian sound because we're ending on the flat 7. Okay, lick 4 now goes like this. Okay, so we're thinking that G7 chord there, that we all know and love. And what we're going to do is we're going to just highlight the notes from that. So we're sliding in and playing this little phrase to start, which is just like a straight major pentatonic. And then what we're going to do is we're going to emphasize that major, flat 7. So that's where the flat 7 is, the major third's here, the flat 7's there. So we're really going to emphasize those two notes because that's the essence of Mixolydian. And then we're just going to end it by sliding up to the root note, which is here. Where are we? What's that? 8th fret of the B string. We could play the same note here, but I like that one because I like to slide into it and shake it. But if we just wanted to, we could play this one here, and that would sound like this. But I find I can get a nicer vibrato here than I can here. See, it just sounds slightly different. Okay, so that was all for licks. There is a PDF that accompanies this. If you would like a copy of that, it's completely free. Just send me an email. Next time I'm online, I'll just reply back and attach the PDF to the email. The PDF is completely free. You're not signing up to anything. It's paid for and made possible by the Patreon supporters and those that contribute to the channel via the PayPal tip jar. If you'd like to contribute to the channel, please see the details in the description below for more details about that. Patreon supporters pay a monthly subscription, and for that they get extra videos and extra lessons and that kind of thing as well. But the tab and everything is made possible by the Patreon supporters and those who support via the PayPal tip jar. The PDF has got all the notes of everything, all the theory and everything, plus it's got the tab of those 4 particular licks. Take care. I'll see you next time. We'll come back and we'll dig into these modes a little bit more.